Thanks, guys, for having me tonight. So yeah, today I want to share a little bit about my experience with Ember. I've been working with Ember for about, I would say, 6 months now. Second project working with Ember, so I learned a few things. I wish I knew a few things before I started with Ember. So yeah, I work at storyful. I'm a front-end developer at storyful, and to give a little bit more context of the things we had kind of to build and why we decided on Ember, it's important to talk about what we do there. So in storyful, we work a lot with social media, and we kind of mix journalists with technology, and we try to get something awesome out of it. So that's what we do there. And then we have to build a lot of tools for the journalists and to make them more efficient, basically. So we build a lot of things there. So yeah, I'm going to talk about a few things I wish I knew before I started an Ember project. This is a talk that I gave one of our internal events. And while I was reviewing the talk, I kind of, it's not a good name for the talk, so a few pain points that I had to go through while I was working with building an Ember app. So a little bit more context. Before I worked with Ember, the first framework, actually, not a framework, but a library that I worked on the front end after jQuery and vanilla JavaScript was Backbone. And I moved kind of away from Backbone. Backbone's great. I think it's simple. It's nice, but it's kind of lacks a lot of things that we kind of need today. So we need to be fast. We need to be more robust. We need to scale better things. And again, conventions, that's something that Ember brings to us, so it's a good thing. Then we started using Angular 1, and there's several reasons. I'm not going to talk about them here, but we were not happy with Angular, basically. And when the opportunity to use a new framework came, we were like, okay, let's embrace Ember. So yeah, why Ember? So yeah, as I said before, we build a lot of things. We prototype a lot of things. We develop small applications. We test them, and we get feedback from it, and we evolve these applications. So we needed something that were like basically out-of-the-box solutions that we can just start, have everything we need, and focus on the product instead of the technology. So yeah, Ember brings this everything like CLIs, tests, add-ons, server, build. We don't need to think about that. We just have that and just use it. Conventions, again, that's one of the main things. Any developer can just jump in and understand what's going on, and you don't need to teach everything. You just don't need to maintain documentation on those things, on how to build things. So it's a major thing. And I would say conventions, again, that's the main thing for us. So yeah, the pain points. Some of them are very specific, so yeah, I just put a few dog pictures to make things a bit easier. So this is the first thing we had to learn the hard way with Ember. Ember and the community moves very fast. It's always updating, which is a great thing. The bugs are being fixed. The performance is increasing, so everything moves really fast. So Ember is constantly being updated, which is amazing. But you need to keep up with that. So you need to clean a lot of warnings. Every time you update something, you need to clean up, see what you're doing, and kind of follow the technology. Another pain points, every time you're researching something, since the Ember is being updated a lot, you refer to the documentation, you see it sometimes a solution for something, but you don't have for the version you need. So that's something that we had to kind of figure out ourselves. Again, when we started with Ember, we were not on the latest version for some reason, and we had problems for one specific version, and we couldn't find like on Stack Overflow or anywhere else, and we had to kind of solve on our own. Plugins and add-ons, we end up wrapping a few jQuery stuff in Ember components to fix things. It's evolving fast, so sometimes you find a plugin, but it's not compatible with your version. So we end up building our own version of the components we needed. So what we learned from it? Yeah, keep Ember happy, dated. Avoid plugins and add-ons when possible. Sometimes it's easier just to build your own version. It's lighter, it's faster, it's going to solve your problem. It's not going to be something huge and the Ember way, that's something that people talk a lot about, and there's always the Ember way. Sometimes you need to move away from the Ember way, but you're better off following the Ember way. Cool. Now a bit of more specific things we've been through. That's something that sometimes Ember is so amazing and so gives you everything. You have the router and everything is so clean. You don't need to write anything. You don't need to create the files. But sometimes you need to do something that you think it's simple, but you end up spending a lot of time, and then sometimes the code is not as beautiful as you thought it would be. So for example, this is from early days. We just wanted to have some data preloaded on the page. We were using Ember data, and we wanted to have some data that's going to live throughout the entire life cycle of the application, and this data doesn't change, and we just wanted the data there. So we had to kind of do something like this before the model, I'll add some data. Maybe there's a better way to do this. If you know, please talk to me afterwards. But yeah, this is what ended up going to production. We basically just load the data and set up on the controller and just use it on the views. So that's the first thing. Cool. This is something that I learned kind of by the end of the product, the development of the product, and it's kind of helpful, but then I kind of realized that's not a great idea, but it's important, it's good to know. So when you are working inside a controller, for example, you can just pass the entire controller. So you have a monolithic, huge controller with several small components, and you just want to kind of group them in small areas, and so you can just pass the entire controller. But again, this is keep your components simple. Don't pass too much. Don't pass entire models. Just pass the attributes you need. But I don't know. Maybe it's helpful sometimes. This is another thing. If you're coming from plain JavaScript, or if you're coming from a jQuery background, it's so easy to go and just move the DOM around and move elements, delete elements, and that's not how you're supposed to do things with Ember. You're supposed to let Ember render things for you, and you just keep the data updated. So one example here is a simple drag and drop. If you look at any jQuery library, you're going to see the DOM elements moving around, being re-rendered in the DOM. And if you look at the Ember way of doing things, it's probably it's going to be CSS, just moving, using some transitions, and you don't touch the DOM, basically. You only when you drop things, you resort the list and render things. So it took a while to us to kind of understand exactly how this works, but after we figured that out, it was just amazing. We could build like complex cropping tools and resizing tools fairly easy, building small components that we can just tweak the way we want. So it's something that it's nice to know. So yeah, never manipulate the DOM directly. Just let Ember manipulate that for you. And kind of, you're going to keep the DOM state in sync with your app state. And sometimes when you really need to drag something around, you could just drag kind of the mouse, but you just use a proxy. Just use a dummy element and just track that element, and then you can reflect that into the models you're using. This another tricky thing. In one of our applications, we have a lot of like relationships between models, and we wanted a very simple way to know how. Let's say I'll give the problem here. So the problem is you have a model, then you have a HASMANY relationship, and you just want to know if you added something to this HASMANY relationship or you deleted something. So Ember is not going to give you this information at all. Like, if actually, I tried many times. If you guys know, again, talk to me afterwards. but there's no way. I couldn't find a way. So yeah, I wanted to know if the main model, the parent model, is dirty, because, you know. So yeah, that's the solution that I found. Simple, just compare the the IDs basically. So, but to get to this, I had to kind of write a lot of code in different places, and I was not very happy about. Probably I should turn that into an add-on. But since this was one thing that we had to do, end up not turning into an add-on. So what we basically do is we have a mixin that we cache this relationship. It's a bit big. Not going to walk through the code, but I can make it available afterwards. Then we just cache if that's checked if the relationship is dirty. It's another function we have. Then have a function here that we use inside the model. Yeah, that's it. So basically, we just pass that. It's ugly. It's not nice, but solved our problem for that. And we do that for a lot of different things. So cool. Another thing. That's another thing. We choose to, for example, this is a scenario where, let's see if we have here. So we were saving those parent elements with the child. So like, let's say you have a parent model, and then you have like 5 childs, and you create a new one, and you change a little bit of things in one of these models, and you add another one, and you want to save it all together. So if you send like new IDs to Ember, Ember is going to create a model for you, fine, but it's not clean up these new IDs. So this is the hack we had to do. Basically, clear records afterwards, after we save stuff. So not nice, but it's there. And the last thing, this is something that we recently learned we're using the JSON API. We're playing with the JSON API. We're learning from it. And sometimes when you're playing with nested routes and you let Ember loads everything for you, if you just leave the code the way it is without customizing anything, sometimes you may end up getting like hundreds of requests, maybe, depending on the case, because you're loading all the HASMANY relationship, and that's how Ember thinks about it. So it's just going to try to load each and every one of them. So yeah, it's just a matter of playing around with the JSON API. So we find out that just including things when you make a request, it makes your life very easier in this case. So cool. I think that's it. Thanks. I hope any of this helped any of you. If you just have any questions, if you have any suggestions for the problem that I showed here, I would love to hear about. So thank you, guys. Any questions? Oh, thank you.
When you started working on the product, did you need to upgrade it to a newer version, or are you using the same version?
Yeah, around when we started playing with Ember, we got the latest version, and then after we didn't update for a while because we were using some third-party plugins, and they were working fine, and we were not updating anything. But then we decided to update because we were like reading the documentation and news, and okay, we're better off updating the Ember. We realized that a few of the plugins that we updated actually Ember, and we realized that a few of the plugins were not working. They were just misbehaving, or there were some exceptions happening, and we started getting warnings from those plugins. And that was the point that we decided to stop using a lot of, like, mainly UI stuff, and usually plugins that are kind of just wrappers for like jQuery stuff. And so we kind of decided not to use them and build our own stuff. And then now we update everything. So we keep Ember updated all the time. Cool.
product stay the same as you were transitioning between these, or did you use that as an opportunity to track some?
Yeah.
You know,
So yeah, it's a good question. Actually, the first project that I worked that was Backbone was not transitioned to anything; it's still Backbone. But the code that we migrated from was a mix, was Angular. Angular 1. Actually, we just deleted everything. Like, basically, that's the simple question. We kind of left the application running side by side, and then we slowly killed the application. So we didn't migrate anything. Yeah, there was a lot of like technical debt there, and that we didn't want to spend time looking at it. We kind of removed a lot of features and decided just to move on.
Some of the things you mentioned seem like legitimate bugs. Are you on older versions of like Ember data perhaps, or have these created issues? Also, similar to the add-ons, how come you chose the strategy to stop using add-ons and build your own rather than fixing the add-ons?
Yeah, a few of the add-ons, they were too complex for what we needed. They were too heavy as well. And we wanted like slightly different things. So instead of just going to the add-on and messing with them, we decided to build our own, because after we got our heads around how Ember works, it was easier just to build. So we end up with really small components, which is really nice. Regarding the bugs that you mentioned, I don't remember creating any bugs, but we were following a few threads on the GitHub page, because I remember seeing some of them as bugs there, and we were just seeing what was the follow-up on that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hey.
Can it do cross-server communication?
Sorry?
Can it do cross-server communication?
No, actually, we only use an internal API, so we never had to do anything. Like, probably you need to look at the adapters to work with cross-server communication, but we only use an internal API that runs on the same server as the application, so we never had to tackle that.
Like, for example, in jQuery, I want to get a data from some other server.
Yeah.
So it doesn't allow. Like on the server from which we are getting a data, it only passes the data. So in the AJAX request,
Yeah.
for example, in the AJAX request, I have to specify the server, our internal server for our application. For example, I want to get data somewhere from else from Google.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we use a few services to query external stuff, and then we use the jQuery that's just inside Ember to query them. We don't, for these scenarios, I think, since they're very simple, we don't even have models, or we don't use Ember data for that. We just have a simple service that just queries something, and we just get the data back and use it. But you could easily implement an adapter on Ember and just query data from external services and even store them inside models, or just use as part of your application. We prototyped a few things using third-party APIs. I remember doing something with Twitter, with Google News probably. So yeah, you can definitely do that.
Okay, and at the server side, which application, which programming language do you use? Means Java or?
Yeah, our backend, it's Ruby on Rails. So it plays very nicely with Ember. It's very good.
Okay, and if you want to integrate with PHP, do you have any experience?
Yeah, as long as the first application that we built, we were using the REST API. So it's slightly different from a traditional, I would say, REST API, because you can sideload stuff, which is great. You make less calls. Now we're playing with the JSON API, so there's a gem, I think, on Rails to play with that. But as long as you get data in the right format, and even if you don't have it, you can just write your own serializer or your own adapter, and it's quite easy. We had to make a few adjustments in the beginning, and it was not painful at all. It was quite simple. I think the documentation is very well, explains a lot how it works and everything. Cool. Cool.